I don't even know where to start with this video. This theory has changed like 5 whole times over the course of its making. Originally, this started out as a Woody theory, but other people beat me to the punch on that. And, you know, that's fine, because this has become so much more than just a Woody theory. You know what? I think this is best illustrated if I just show it. Bring up the conspiracy board. Yeah, this video is about Friend. Also, this is how this video is going to be done. I lost the studio in a bet. Don't ask me about it. I swear to God, if I see anything asking me about the bet in the comment sections, you're banned. You're out of here. I don't care that I only have 1,000 subscribers and I shouldn't be alienating people. You can't tell me what to do. My ego is overflowing. So, chapters 3 and 4 had an interesting way in the way they interacted with our predictions and theories of what they would be. Not only do they reference some specific theories made by the community in some interesting situations, but also, in the terms of these predictions and theories actually holding weight for these next 2 chapters, there's an interesting dynamic where a lot of the theories weren't exactly right, but on the same hand, they weren't exactly wrong either. Is Chris the Roaring Knight? No, but they do seem to be a knight and working with this Roaring Knight. Is the knight a moving title which is given to a different person each chapter? No, but the knight has a party around it and seemingly more knights to serve it. Will chapter 4 be a dark world in the church? No, there's 4 dark worlds in chapter 4 and 3 of them are in the church. Will Susie make the main dark fountain of chapter 4? No, but she will make a dark fountain. Will the secret boss of chapter 3 be a Toriel-like figure who tries to guide Chris lovingly? Well, no, but we certainly do get something like that with Ram. Will the Shadow Mantle be required for the next secret boss? Well, technically no. Will the Shadow Mantle give us the Green Soul? No, but we do get the Green Soul eventually. Will chapter 3's Dark World be a TV world? Well, debatably yes, but chapter 3 is more of a TV stage built on top of a barren tundra dark world. Will Woody theory be true? Well, no, there's no cowboy secret boss in chapter 3, but Toby certainly seems to like the idea. And then there's Friend. And we had a lot of thoughts about this guy. Is he a chair? Is he a cat? Is he Mike? And all of those are not confirmed, but are certainly teased. Okay, so let's talk about this creature. For those out of the know, this smiling fucker who looks like he stole Spamton's eyes has been watching us for a while now. It first appeared in the dungeon in chapter 2, where we've been teased for it ever since, with the Spamton sweepstakes constantly bringing it back into the picture. And its file name is image_friend in all caps, which I'm assuming that if you don't know who Friend is, you don't know about the device theory, so for sake of simplification, that just means it's important. And then in chapter 3, Toby just does not give a fuck, dropping this fucker everywhere. It jump scares us in Ralsei's intro monologue, it pieces itself together inside of different caves in Ram's secret game, and it is used as a minion during the chapter 3 secret mini-boss. It calms itself down a lot in chapter 4, hiding itself much better than ever before, but then this happens, and I'll talk about this later. So what do we know about Friend? I mean, I think the first thing to start off with is how it looks similar to everybody's favorite #1 rated salesman. And from just a brief look at Tenna from chapter 3, we can definitely tell that Spamton's very into stealing other people's style, so it probably was Friend who he got it from. Okay, that all checks out, but then why does somebody else steal the color style of our good old Friend here? Okay, so if we look at the exact color palette here, things really only get more interesting for me, because Spamton and Friend, their color seems to be almost exactly the same. If there's any difference between them, it's probably just my color picker that's a bit off. Also, on the topic of them being the same, their eye shapes are also very similar. The way Spamton's right eye, his yellow eye, droops a little bit is seen exactly copied in the Friend. Looking at the colors, the yellow is far more vibrant and saturated than the pink, which is unsaturated and a little dull. However, interestingly enough, with Gerson, this pattern swaps. His yellow is a lot less saturated and more dull, while his pink is much more vibrant. I'm not sure if this means anything just quite yet, but what's important to take from this is that 2 out of the 3 secret bosses, if we're not including the knight, share this color palette. And things only get more interesting when you look at the one who doesn't. That, of course, being
Chaos!
So I kind of lied here. Remember how I ranted on earlier about how Deltarune has taken our theories and expectations for the game and kind of twisted them in a way where they're not false, but they're also not true exactly how we predicted them. I think something like that is happening here with Jevil. Okay, this is going to get into some wild color theory, but run with me for a bit here. First of all, Jevil does in fact have the yellow. He's got that there, but it's the pink he's missing. However, that's not what I want you to pay attention to. Instead, let's go for the green. Excluding the black, Jevil's sprite is made up of only 4 colors. The colors are kind of split into 2 halves here. On one half, we have this purplish blue and very pale light blue. On the other half, we have our yellow, very similar to Spamton's yellow and Friend's yellow, and we have our green. Now, comparing this yellow and green, it's a pretty simple jump between the two of them. You give it a little bit of blue, desaturate it a little bit, darken it, and then voila, you got Jevil's signature green. Now, you might be asking, why am I ranting about colors? Well, hear me out here. Let's take Friend's pink, give it a little blue, desaturate it a little bit, and then give it a little bit of darkness. And, it's not an exact match, but it's very similar. Okay, enough of this nonsense. What am I getting at here? Well, the way the yellow turns to green, and the way the pink can turn to this purple, it reads to me as if Jevil's color palette is kind of a warping of the Friend's color palette. Like a more gloomy version, sort of. Don't forget about this, we'll come back to it later. Now, when I first saw this, my first thought was, oh shit, Friend's the one giving shadow crystals! And I don't think I'm entirely wrong, but I think there's something even more here. However, I'll let the original idea stand on its own legs for a second here. So I thought Friend is giving the shadow crystals, but then the question is, why? My first idea being that Friend is some sort of messenger, doing the bidding of somebody much higher up on the totem pole. The main reason I thought this, and maybe even still think it, is because of the ERAM boss fight, where Friend, or should I say, friends, are used as minions by this mysterious ERAM figure. My thought was that Friend doesn't refer to a specific entity, but rather a group of entities. Friends, if you will. And these friends are sent out to Dark Worlds by somebody, probably Gaster, to give out the shadow crystals to all of our fun secret bosses. And I say Gaster because it's kind of hard to ignore his influence on the whole shadow crystal thing. Friend would go down and befriend these secret bosses, explaining the name and give them a shadow crystal as a gift from a friend. The reason Jevil doesn't share the pink and gold color palette is because he did something wrong, which I wasn't quite sure of what was done yet, but I think I eventually figured it out. We'll talk about that later. A big question left hanging is, what about the Knight? Why do they have a shadow crystal? A lot of people have been theorizing that it was in fact the Knight who has been giving out shadow crystals. After all, it was Jevil who informed the king of the Knight in the first place, so there's a connection there. Well, I'm very skeptic on that as of right now, but regardless, the Knight having a shadow crystal is something that this theory cannot yet explain. So, I went deeper. Real quick before we get to the next section, I do have some more evidence for Friend's connection to the secret bosses, which I wasn't able to bring up naturally earlier, so I'll go over it here. The only time that image_Friend actually does show up, like the actual file, the actual regular smiling face that we see, represented as Friend, not the amalgam Friend or the minion Friend, is in chapters 4 and chapters 2. Both of the only chapters with a pink and gold secret boss, at least as of now. And it definitely seems like Chapter 5 is going to be interesting, because the whole reason I called this part Pink and Gold is
Chapter 5, Fields of Pink and Gold, a vast garden charred in an inferno of jealousy.
I feel like too many people focus on the charred inferno of jealousy part of this line, when the actual pink and gold color theory is confirmed to be at least something here. It's also spoken of by Gerson, one of our pink and gold friends over here, so that's interesting. Also, while we're on the topic of color theory, I did look into this, so I might as well mention the insanely similar color palette of Sham and Ram. It definitely has some connection to pink and gold, the purple being very similar to what Friend's pink becomes with Jevil, and the orange being kind of an opposite of how Jevil's yellow turns to green, this orange being more vibrant and instead of adding blue, it adds red. I don't know what this means or if it even means anything, but it does help illustrate how the two of them are very similar. They're both shopkeepers who guide you down to the secret boss of their chapter and getting the shadow crystal. They both seemingly have a mutual interest in helping Chris, or in Sham's case, maybe the player, but We'll see. Anyways, with all this evidence of something, I thought there could be actually something here, so I looked further, and I looked for somebody else with pink and gold. And, oh boy, did I find something.
The second hero, the girl with hope crossed on her heart.
Why the fuck is Susie pink and gold? This was something at first that I just fucking shit myself about and didn't want it to be true, because it didn't make any sense. But now, I understand everything. Okay, quick side tangent before I get to the actual point of this, because I can already hear one of you little fuckers in the comments going, actually, Susie is not the second hero. I mean, this isn't really very relevant, but I do want to bring this up because it's just a fucking lie. It's just a fucking lie. I like Spooky Dude. I like his videos. I'll ride with my fellow Chris Snyder till the grave. But he's either lying in his video or he's just stupid. The thing is, I actually kind of agree with his interpretation. I do think that there is 4 heroes. I think that is actually kind of what this prophecy's leaning towards. However, if this is the 4th hero's prophecy, this symbol is not the fucking Rude Buster symbol. This is a Rude Buster, and this is an act icon. And I also wouldn't be saying this if I didn't see it everywhere. If I didn't see everybody call this the fucking Rude Buster symbol. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I'm just factually right about this. Like, it literally just is the axe symbol. What are you seeing? Am I going crazy? And then I see people say that the second hero prophecy doesn't look like Susie, and in fact looks like Noelle. And my question to you is, what drugs are you on? Are you high? Because what are you talking about? Now, granted, the sword is weird, but Noelle having pencils doesn't mean that she will wield a sword. And it's also not impossible for Susie to hold a sword. And you know what? I'll actually explain why it doesn't look like Noelle, because it's so fucking obvious. First of all, Noelle's face is rather flat, except for her nose, which only really juts out a little bit, while Susie's face juts out a lot, which is exactly like this fucking prophecy. Secondly, Noelle's hair is flat and round and droops down smoothly, whereas Susie's hair is pointy and sharp, just like the prophecy image. And finally, where the fuck are Noelle's antlers? I'm sorry if that was a bit rude. I'm sorry. I don't know. I feel like I'm going crazy here. Like, I'm seeing this theory get spread around so much, and like everybody's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And I'm just like the only one here who's like pointing out that it's just obviously not true. That's just like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. I actually think the theory is pretty good. Just the evidence it's founded on is just complete fallacy. And there is some good evidence for the theory, like the whole Susie not wearing ribbons thing when the hero is supposed to, and Tenna building his game off of the weird route. But like, I don't know, man. No hate towards Spooky Dude. Love his channel. It's pretty good. But like, anyways, sorry if you didn't understand any of that because you don't know the theory I'm talking about. But end of another ranting message. Anyways, the reason I bring this up is because Susie is the girl with hope crossed her heart. You know, that's her thing. She is, in fact, the hope. Not to be confused with the Pope. Very different things. Anyways, this got me thinking. Why? Why is Susie pink and gold? Why does Susie fit in with the pattern? Then it got me thinking about Gerson, our other pink and gold friend, who, similar to Susie, has that hope. I mean, that's their whole thing. They're connected on the hope thing. Also, Gerson believes that the prophecy can be subverted or broken. Well, I think I found a common theme between the two of them, but that couldn't be it, surely. I mean, look at Spamton. How does he fit into this? So I thought about that. You see, Spamton's whole thing is that he's forgotten. He's rejected. He's living in a goddamn garbage can. On a meta level, there's a question of if Spamton's even really supposed to be an important character. He serves no known function to the prophecy whatsoever. And the only reason we meet Spamton in the first place is because Queen's car just gets stuck in traffic. Yet, despite all of that, despite all of those facts, Spamton still tries to be a big shot. When we do the route that subverts from the linear storytelling, or maybe even the prophecy itself, look who's benefiting from it the most. Now let's look at Jevil. Unlike Spamton, or Gerson, or even Friend, we can just go through the entire game without ever seeing Jevil. Sure, he's one of the best characters of Chapter 1, but he doesn't actually play a part in the chapter at all, plot-wise. He's just a secret insane guy off doing his own thing. We don't even learn till Chapter 4 that he had any involvement with the plot of Chapter 1. Jevil can do anything, yet he does nothing. He doesn't change the prophecy, he doesn't change the plot. And that's it. That's the connection. That's the fucking linchpin. So, what if this is what Friend wants? Friend wants us to change the prophecy. Wants a better ending. Maybe that's what the pure crystal is for. But I think to prove that, we need to know who Friend is. Well, luckily I do think I know Friend's actual name.
When you meet the friendly fellow, you must shake him by the hand.
The thing about this part is I don't know how this fits in with Friend's motive or what Friend is trying to do, but it's important because it's fucking true. So, let's talk about the Mike fight. So, there's this interpretation I've been seeing going around that Mike was never supposed to be a serious thing. The foreshadowing we saw of Mike from Spamton in Chapter 2 was just Spamton copying Tenna's mannerisms and calling out for an imaginary Mike, like Tenna does. Now, I will be granted, I'm looking back on it and I can see how some of the lines from Spamton can convey this.
Me? Friends? I'm Chris! You and me are already friend request accepted! We don't need anyone else! We don't need or CRTs! We don't need any!
Man, woman, or child.
At half price! We don't need Mike. Chris, don't believe it!
Anything you see on TV.
The man's a criminal, I tell you! A criminal! Are you getting all of this? Mike! I'm finally gonna be a big shot!
However, it doesn't stop at Chapter 2. It's not in the game at all. It's in the Spamton sweepstakes, where we get this.
That damn
Bam, tape.
You're the one that should be having a refreshing night's sleep in the recycling bin! Everything is his. Everything is his fault! Hey, everyone is going to pay! Until they're all in the disposal begging for mine! Everyone except Mike.
Okay, if Mike's just a running joke of Tenna mentioning some mysterious person on the other side of nowhere, who doesn't exist and is just Tenna's headmate, why? Why does Spamton say Mike will not pay? He wants vengeance on all of Tenna's crew, except for very specifically and hiddenly, Mike. Why? Why would Toby write this in if Mike was just nothing more than Spamton and Tenna's headmate? While on this topic, why should Tenna pay? I think it's important to get his side of the story at least.
How did things turn out like this? Keeping poor tutorial locked up. If only he hadn't abandoned me, my old partner. I was gonna put him on TV. I was gonna make him a star. I gave him everything I had. My life advice. All he had to do was tell me what his little secret was. Secret to being a big shot. It took a little sweet talk. But just when I had finally gotten him to sign the deal, he suddenly had to take a phone call. But when he picked it up, his face turned pale, and he ran right out of the room with the receiver hanging. So I went to pick it up, thinking it was finally my chance to be a big shot. But there was nobody there. That little freak ripped me off! I wish they had never brought that laptop home.
Why, in any way, why should Tenna pay? From this side of the story, which is the most complete side of the story we've got, it just seems like it was all Spamton's fault. We're missing context here. Why would Toby leave this loose end if it didn't mean something? What, or who, was on that phone call? Well, at least at this point for me, the only possible answer was Mike. Or maybe Gaster, but that's a whole separate thing. I mean, think about it. Mike is the only mutual we know between the two of them. And what was ever said to Spamton on that phone call is what changed his opinion of Tenna, is what made him think Tenna should pay. So here's what I think happened. I think Mike was friends with Spamton first. He was his top guy. I think Mike was the one who made him into a big shot in the first place. Maybe Mike connected him with Tenna, but the thing was, Tenna wanted to be a big shot just like Spamton. He wanted the treatment that Mike had given to Spamton. Either because Mike couldn't do that for Tenna, or because it needed Spamton in the cyber world to go down his Neo route. So Mike called up Spamton and somehow convinced Spamton that the deal Tenna put on the table was a crock, and that Tenna was just trying to screw him from the start.
Right at the good part. What are you, a game show host?
Whether or not it was Mike, somebody convinced Spamton that Tenna never cared. And we know that's true because of this scene.
What the? How did this thing get out here? My secret? No? Everyone's gonna know. Everyone's gonna know why. It's all over. I'm at my limit. If only anyone was here for me, I'd even take that little mailman.
Trash heap. You kept it? You really do care.
What the? Oh, how the mama, what the hell, whoa, mama, what the, whoa, me, mama mia, what's going on with the mama mia, whoa, heck, what the, mama, hey, whoa, mama mia, what the heck, what the, happened to mama, whoa, what the heck, mama, what the, mama, what the heck, mama, what's going on, mama, what's going on, hey, whoa, what the heck, what the, whoa, what the heck, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on, mama mia, what the, mama mia, what the, hey, what the, mama mia, now what's going on, what's the, whoa, mama, hey, mama, what the heck is that thing? Some kind of rat? Some kind of creature?
Don't you recognize
Stay
me?
away from her, you fiend! Oh, my little darling, are you okay? Did that overly small, weird, unidentifiable thing hurt you? Don't worry, we're going someplace safe!
The Peepus was a gift, one that Tenna cherished, one that Tenna did actually care about. Tenna cared about the Peepus because Spamton was his friend, and he cared about Spamton. Tenna was a liar, and this is when it's proven to Spamton that Tenna did actually care. Now, it might not be Mike doing this, but I can't find anybody else who would be. We also know that sometime after this, or maybe because of this, Mike cut contact with Spamton, leaving him in the ruined state we see him in Chapter 2. If you don't believe me, listen to Big Shot. Mike was pulling the strings, it was making them ring. It made Spamton into a big shot, but then Mike left, leaving him alone, friendless. Spamton calls out and asks if Mike's watching, and what do you know? Somebody is watching. We might call that person a friend. Okay, that's all neat and dandy, but why do I think Mike is friend? Well, now we go to the Mike boss fight, and this little shit. Alright, so all of these Mike bosses are supposed to be wacky interpretations of what the fanbase thought that Mike would be. Maniac Mike is a cowboy, and he'll be the Chapter 3 secret boss in Woody Theory. Or Mike is just a microphone who works for Tenna, which he kind of is. Or Mike is Friend, and Friend is a cat. Now, for obvious reasons, that sticks out to me. But the biggest thing is that Toby can't be referencing theories with this character, because this character has to predate any Friend is cat theories. let me explain. If you don't know why we think Friend is a cat, well, it kinda got confirmed in this chapter, but before that, what really gave the idea of it was the Spamton sweepstakes. And not the original Spamton sweepstakes, mind you. No. The Spamton sweepstakes silence ending, which was released just a couple of weeks before Deltarune's Chapter 3 and 4 were. For those unaware, the Spamton sweepstakes were basically just one big Spamton-based ARG Toby did for charity, which provided a lot of the foreshadowing that we needed for Chapters 3 and 4. The silence ending was a different ending to the ARG that wasn't achieved originally, but Toby decided to release the ending and all the content with it, including this minigame, alongside an accompanying description from a young Noelle.
Anyways, on days where it rained, nothing was better than playing cat petters. Specifically the minigames you can play with your cats. They were all ridiculous. And every one of them had these super silly rific names. Like Jonkler or something. XD, what does that even mean? I remember being really into one of these games when I was little. I can't remember the name because it was complete nonsense, sorry, XP, but it was the one that was like an endless cave, if that makes sense. I even made a guide to the rarities of the different cats that could help raise your score. I still have the text file, although I just named it b.text. Really helpful, me, XP. Chances 80% normal, 15% blue aura, 4% rock and roll, 0% angel wing, 0% super holy angel wing. I sort of feel like there were more though. Like, one time, I remember getting a cat and it actually lowered how many points I had. And then of course I died immediately, so I couldn't get a picture or anything. And of course no one else has ever seemed to see this. Actually, I get the feeling someone else I know has seen it. But I just know if I asked them, I probably wouldn't get a straight answer. XP ugh. Super fun fact, on an unrelated note, these games even make a cameo in the Cat Petters RPG, which, like everything good, is kind of a ripoff of Dragon Blazers, if I'm being honest. XD, okie dokie, let my bias show for a second there, XP. You guys should really play it, though. As usual, if anybody thinks they can find any proof, try it yourself and let me know.
The minigame seemingly implies that Friend is an ultra-rare cat petter's pet, which is what made the community think that Friend was a cat. Now, Friend is basically confirmed to be a cat at this point, but we'll get to that later. My point being, how? How is it possible that Toby Fox put this character in to reference Friend cat theory a month before Chapters 3 and 4 were released? Mind you, the game was in playtesting at the time. And on top of that, this boss fight isn't referencing the minigame and the theories that sprung from it. No, this minigame is referencing the boss fight. That's what the whole point of the Spamton sweepstakes is, to allude towards future chapters and stuff within them with cryptic shit like this. So it's not possible Toby put this fucking cat there because of fandom speculation, unless he just predicted that this is what people would think. But that doesn't account for all of the fucking cat petters shit. I mean, this entire boss fight basically just evolves into an entire cat petters minigame, and then after the boss fight, they give you a bunch more cat petters minigames. They even have a cat very explicitly with pink and gold eyes. They couldn't get more on the nose, except they do, because one of the cat petters minigames, Friend shows up, like just raw Friend, and that minigame is explicitly a reference to the minigame on the Spamton Sweepstakes website that we just looked at. There is an undeniable connection here between Mike and Friend. Now, it doesn't mean that Mike is Friend, but I'm finding it hard to find any other reason. Especially considering Deltarune's already got its handful of hidden, mysterious, meta characters in the background, so I don't know why Toby would add 2 more when he could just add 1. But if somehow you're still not convinced, I implore you to look at Mike's fucking door, because it is literally just Friend's face on the door. You can't get more direct. The reason I bring all of this up is because, without a shadow of a doubt, if we're discussing Friend, I think this needs to be brought up. You see, I don't really know how Mike being Friend or Mike being a friend really pieces into this whole thing. Hell, Mike being Friend might put some holes in my theory because of how cruel Mike tends to be, which might conflict with some of the stuff I'm going to say later on. But I bring this up because I think it's important to get a full picture of Friend and what it is in Deltarune, and I think the fact that Friend and Mike might be one and the same is just kind of an undeniable truth. It is just a theory at the end of the today, but a lot of this video is compiling evidence, and I'd be damned if this isn't evidence of something. So I'm going to leave some of this up to you guys. I think it's important for us as the community to come together and actually try to solve this, get some different eyes than mind. A big question I have for the rest of you as a community is, why is Mike named Mike? This is something I haven't been able to figure out, because if Mike is friend, or friend is Mike, why the name Mike? It's not like Toby just randomly names his characters. Almost every Toby Fox character has some kind of reason behind their name. And I don't know what that is with Mike, if it's not being a microphone. So I'd really love to hear some speculation of this. My current best guess is that Mike is some kind of corruption of the actual name. Similar to how Clamgirl calls Susie her name, but with a Z. Maybe Tenna or Spamton is just mispronouncing it, and we don't get the true picture of that because of it. However, I'll leave that to the rest of y'all to speculate. I'm gonna move on to the next.
You meet the friendly fellow, put up in your humor, shaking it, yes, I'm waiting by the hand.
So I think I mentioned this earlier, but upon the reveal of Friend being a cat, a lot of people instantly compared him to one cat in particular, that cat being the Cheshire Cat, the strange cat from Alice in Wonderland. And assuming Friend is a cat, if you look at them, they're very similar. They share a wide grin and two beady eyes. And just like Friend, the Cheshire Cat has a habit of disappearing its head and body, but leaving its grin and eyes still visible for at least a second. So there's definitely some similarities in these two's designs, enough for me to look into our Cheshire Friend over here. So I went and watched the 1951 classic Disney film Alice in Wonderland, and I also looked at the book. I didn't read this entire thing because look at the size of it. I mean, I have it right here in reality. I mean, I don't own it, it's my father's, but you know, this, I mean, I'm not gonna read all this. Have you seen the attention span of a modern day person? Think I got time for that? But you know, I got a YouTube video summary of the whole thing, so it's basically like I read the entire book. But anyways, let's talk about Alice in Wonderland, because it's very similar to our Undertale alternate universe game here. For starters, Wonderland is basically just a dark world. It's a form of fiction within fiction where objects come to life. It twists the rules of reality to make them into a bit of nonsense. It has kings and queens and card people of all types, and the people that reside in this place are mostly just fun, wacky little guys. Also, I'm pretty sure Toby has seen this movie before and was inspired by it because... unless somebody at service I legally obtained this from. This is punking me. That is just the Lancer splat sound effect. That is where it originates from. It originates from this movie, so we know Toby has had taken at least some inspiration from Alice in Wonderland. So, that takes us to the one place where this inspiration has been the most evident thus far. That, of course, being Friend in Cheshire here. So, let's look into this mysterious Cheshire Cat. What's the point of it? What is the Cheshire Cat? I'd say the Cheshire Cat is one of the most interesting characters in this story. Unlike his fellow Wonderlanders, he seems to understand that the world around him is nothing but nonsense, but he seems to embrace this nonsense and even enjoy it a bit. Even if he's a bit strange, he's one of the only people that Alice is actually able to get a straight answer from throughout the entirety of her adventure. The cat seems like he's a tier above the rest of the Wonderlanders in a certain way. Quite similar to how Image_Friend, if we're going by the device theory, is a meta layer above the other Darkners, or maybe even the Lighteners. It's quite possible that this friend has a level of meta-knowledge on the par with Gaster himself. It's also interesting how whenever Alice mentions a cat, mainly harking back to her cat in the real world, it's constantly ensued by panic from the Wonderlanders. And the only cat we see in Wonderland is our friend Cheshire here. And the way Cheshire is treated by the others is like he doesn't exist at all, like he's something lost within the depths of Wonderland. Does that remind you of anybody? There's also this very interesting line that Cheshire says when you think about it in terms of Deltarune.
Oh, wait! Don't go, please!
Very well. Third course.
Oh, no. Thank you, but I just wanted to ask you which way I ought to go.
Well, that depends on where you want to get to.
Oh, it really doesn't matter. As long as I can...
Then it really doesn't matter which way you go.
The line about where you're going, I just can't help but think of all of Deltarune's weird routes. Hell, I mean, this line sounds just like something Toby would write, particularly by somebody behind a certain tree. If we don't know where we're going, we could stumble down the weird route. And not knowing where we're going often seems to lead to a certain tree. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that the Cheshire Cat appears in a tree here, and it's not the only time he does so either. Now, I'm not saying it's friend behind the tree, but this is an interesting way to look at it, especially when we think of what the Cheshire Cat's role is in Alice in Wonderland. Okay, future me here, coming in to interrupt myself, because I found some more links between the Eggman and Friend. So for the editing process, I was going through the OST of Deltarune, and I also got some footage, and I remembered some interesting things, and also found some interesting things. First of all, roots. That's the thing that's pretty clearly associated with the Eggman. That's kind of the Eggman's prophecy, sort of. We see it in the room in between the in-between. Well, to my slight surprise, that's not the only time capitalized roots has been used in something for Deltarune. The most notable one is Digital Roots, which plays in Queen's basement where we first see Friend. And then in Chapter 3, we get a continuation of these roots happening on a secret boss route with bit roots. I think it's fair enough to point out that Friend will show up only a couple of rooms away from when Bitroots plays, and it also shows up before this as well. More good evidence that Friend has to do with the shadow crystals and secret bosses. In Chapter 4, we don't get any more roots in the soundtrack, just the Roots prophecy, but what we do get is actually not really in Chapter 4 at all, but the foreshadowing for Chapter 4. It's in the Friend Cat Petters minigame that we discussed earlier, and the interesting thing is that minigame leads directly to the Eggman's kind of hallway in Chapter 4. I also would be amiss if I didn't point out the tail that a lot of people are theorizing is Friend's tail, because Friend is a cat, and the poor children that the Eggman seems to be related to seem to have followed some sort of tail, so there's another connection there. Do I actually think that Friend is behind the tree? I'm not sure. Not really, honestly, but I'm seeing more evidence for it, and if I dig even deeper, there's possibly even more evidence, so I don't know. The Cheshire Cat is a guide of sorts, trying to lead the outsider Alice to help her understand this madness world that she has fallen into. If Friend is Cheshire Cat and Deltarune, then who would the Alice be? Well, Chris is certainly an outsider. Being the only human among monsters is certainly a thing, and they're also our protagonists, so there's something to that. Then again, there's the player. We are a literal outsider to Deltarune's world, and one that needs guidance every now and then. And the two of us are pretty explicitly linked. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about how Friend, if being Mike is true, guided Spamton towards that Neo suit and the shadow crystal within it. And while it didn't guide Gerson anywhere, it didn't need to, because Gerson himself is the guide. It's possible that Gerson already shared a similar ideology to Friend, so there was no need to tamper with him. And I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that the man behind the tree is seemingly guiding Chris to remembering something. That's all well and good, but do we have any example of an actual friend guiding us, guiding Chris for something? Well, in Queen's Dungeon, if you go off path, Friend seemingly appears in the depths to remind you, lure you deeper down towards the Neo suit, but that's a bit of a stretch. So here's another thing. Let's talk about the ERAM boss fight. Friend, or friends, play an interesting role here. When you kill them, they drop a healing item that can really be the single-handedly saving factor to help you win this fight. But what I've not seen a lot of people talk about, and maybe it's just because nobody sucks as much ass as I am. I know, I'm pretty cool. But if you lose at this fight enough, the friends will kind of activate a fail-safe factor. The healing candies they drop are normally quite rare, but eventually, if you lose enough, the spawn rate of these candies will just quadruple, and this will just basically make you instantly win this fight. Now, while this is most likely just a mechanic that Toby put in the game because a lot of players aren't as familiar with the Zelda-esque gameplay style, which is just a distraction from the regular gameplay style anyways, so Toby goes a bit easier on that, I guess, but I still just can't help but think that it's Friend giving this to us. It's Friend helping us win this fight. Its friend helping us get this Shadow Mantle, which helps us get this Shadow Crystal. On the topic of all of this, I think it's a good time to talk about Chris. I'd like to bring up specifically one line brought up by ERAM.
Chris. Oh, Chris. Is it fun, Chris? Playing around like this. That's why you're searching for them, aren't you? The Shadow Crystal. And the Shadow Mantle that I'm holding. Do you honestly think it will get you what you want?
Why the fuck is nobody talking about this line? Because this is the closest thing to a motivation that we've gotten for Chris so far in Deltarune. Now, it's important to mention here, because I can already hear some of the comment section, that ERAM is talking to Chris, not us, Chris. The line about the weird route basically confirms this. Now, I'm not quite sure as to who ERAM is or what ERAM's supposed to represent. That's probably a topic for a later date. But ERAM knows Chris. ERAM knows the difference between us and Chris. ERAM knows that Chris, not us, is looking for the Shadow Crystals. If that is true, it explains why Chris is making Dark Worlds and working with the Knight. Think about it. Why does the Knight drop a Shadow Crystal? The Black Shard makes sense, it's just a piece of their armor, but a Shadow Crystal is a very clearly valuable thing. Why would they just drop it and leave it there? They had plenty of time to go back and pick it up. It's because they didn't just drop it. It was a gift. A gift for Chris. A big reason why I thought the Knight wasn't giving away all of these Shadow Crystals is because Chris is looking for them, and Chris is working with the Knight. So if the Knight has all of the Shadow Crystals and just isn't giving them to Chris, there's some kind of communication break there. But if the Knight just has one Shadow Crystal and gives it to Chris after they've proven themselves of being worthy of being knighted, that starts to make much more sense to me. I mean, the Knight battle in general has always sort of perplexed me, because it feels so hard, but the reward for it feels so pointless. I mean, sure, mechanically we get a Shadow Crystal and one of the best weapons in the game, but plot-wise, it feels like nothing's happening here. I mean, when we beat Jevil, Gerson, and Spamton, we get some good dialogue from all of them that kind of wraps up their characters and makes it feel like a satisfying ending. But when we beat the Knight, it feels like we get almost nothing, and I think that's because we need to look between the lines here. Chris is knighted and given a Shadow Crystal. That is what the ending of this fight is about. Then again, of course the question is why? Why now has Chris earned the Shadow Crystal? Maybe Chris has proven themselves strong enough to hold on to the Shadow Crystal after surviving the Knight's many blows. Or maybe Chris has proven their loyalty by not actually really hurting the Knight at all, even after it hurts their friends so badly. Maybe it's the fact they were able to control the soul from turning the tables of the battle. Or maybe it's Chris/Theory. Huge credit to Double Dan for his amazing theory and video about this, but Chris/Theory basically says that Chris was the one who slashed Susie and Rousey at the end of the fight. And the thing that really sells this for me is Rousey's reaction as he looks Chris dead in the eye after Susie falls. How could you? There's a bunch more evidence for this and counter evidence with the actual Slash's sprite name being the Roaring Knight _slash, but I heavily recommend that you check out Double Dan's video because it's fucking amazing. I feel like this explains everything about the Knight fight, why the Shadow Crystal is given to us and therefore Chris, and why this fight is so important that Gaster makes us fight it over and over and over again.
Fucking let her go! Fuck! Fuck! Hey, don't let her out from that
Because Chris officially betrays the party and becomes a knight here. And it explains why Chris was betraying the party in the first place, for the Shadow Crystal. Now, once again, here's the question that you should always ask. Why does Chris want the Shadow Crystals? Well, there's another heavily motivating factor that we know Chris wants, and that's freedom! Which is not only associated with Chris, but all of our pink and gold companions. Because hope, as I was talking about earlier, is really nothing unless it's to acquire something. A hope for something. And the hope they all share is for freedom. Freedom from the prophecy. A freedom to tell their own story, where their choices matter. Now, there's of course the obvious thing to point out, which is that Chris doesn't really fit the pink and gold theme. Which you're right, but I'm also a liar. You're not exactly right either. Because if you take a little bit of Chris from the light world and Chris from the dark world, you get, once again, this. And it's definitely not exact, but it is close. And it's interesting to me how this is scattered, how the pink and gold is scattered across Chris's two different designs. The way I personally read this is that Chris may have the drive for freedom, the want for freedom, but might not have the hope that it will actually happen. So Chris requires a motivator, something that can give them the hope, the push they need to acquire this freedom. A soul, perhaps. The hope we have pushing Chris towards freedom, or towards something much worse. But I think, over time, the hope the soul is getting replaced by the hope of somebody else.
Susie's smile, which seemed to defeat everything, shined on in front of you, and for a moment, it was as if all the darkness had been blown away. As if in imitation, your soul began to glow.
Now that's all well and good for understanding Chris, but I think it's time we answer another question. What are the shadow crystals for? So, let's talk about the pure crystal. For those out of the know, the pure crystal is an as of yet unattainable item, which we can find in the bakery as a usable crafting piece to make an item that we'll talk about later. Most people, including myself, think that the pure crystal is what Sham is cooking up with all of these shadow crystals to make. The first thing I think about with the pure crystal is shadows turning to light. A facade of darkness turning into something pure and true. Now I don't know about you, but this makes me think about the night, a creature who has been completely lost in the darkness and corrupted by it. Many people, including myself, think that December holiday is the night. And if that is true, it's very possible that December has lost herself in the darkness, lost herself amongst the shadows, becoming something darker than dark, which is very much reflected in the knight's character design. A chaotic demon of darkness that can shapeshift and malform its own body. It's something that's not quite a lightener, but it also can't be a darkener. I think that the pure crystal cleansing the shadows is the key to saving December and changing the prophecy. I think this is what Friend wants, and it is what it's leading us towards. But it's also important to talk about the other use of the pure crystal. For those who don't know about the weird route, in which case, how have you followed this video? It's such a big thing. I've mentioned it like 5 times. The thorn ring is an exclusively weird route item, an emblem of the suffering we put Noelle throughout this route. It's because of the twisted sword that I see a lot of people think that the shadow crystals will only be useful on the weird route, which is something that I disagree with because of the fact that Chris is clearly looking for them, and Chris wants to stop the weird route. I can't think of anything more thematically on point for the weird route than us taking the pure crystal, the thing Chris has worked for so hard to get, to break the prophecy and save their friends, and us taking that and combining it with the misery we have forced upon Noelle to create something truly demonic. In the process, fully destroying Chris's hope, fully destroying everybody else's freedom so that we can have the freedom of telling the story we want to tell, which is not a good one, apparently. I also think if we're ever going to fight Friend, it will be during the weird route. Anyways, that was the Cheshire Cat section. Certainly got a lot out of that, didn't we? Let's get to the next section. It's a lot less serious.
You meet the friend.
Inside of me. Inside of me.
Keep it together, Tenna. They're still loving it. They have to be. Classical TV! It never gets old! And Susie, she was so excited! Chris! Hey, Chris! Hey, old buddy! Old pal! How's it going? It's going great, isn't it? Everything's just hunky-doody. Where are your buddies? Your pals? By yourself? Don't you want to, keep them company? Oh! Hey, would you look at that? My beeper's going. My silent beeper. It's a new one. I gotta be going now. By the way, seen your father recently? Your brother? We still got that old cowboy program. The one that your dad likes. He was bouncing you on your knee as you watched it together. Sorry, Chris. Sorry. I gotta. I have to go!
Alright, so some of you might not know what Woody theory is, so I'll lie it out really quick for you. It's an idea sprung from a bunch of Woody-based shitposts Toby made and a suspiciously worded Deltarune newsletter about cowboys. The idea was the Chapter 3 secret boss would be a cowboy from a cancelled cowboy TV show, a la Woody's Roundup. Now, while it may not be the Chapter 3 secret boss, like a lot of pre-Chapter 3 Deltarune theories, while it may not be entirely true, there's still definitely some grounds to it.
Next question! What? It was cancelled? You gotta be kidding me. No, you're joking. I invested everything in puppets. Everything I had! Alright. It's fine! Let's just keep going. We're having so much fun!
Not only is this cowboy show referenced a couple times by Tenna, but something that I've not seen anybody else point out is that you can play a few songs on the Chapter 4 piano that opens the final door to the Titan. Most of these songs are Deltarune or Undertale references that will get you a specific dialogue from either Ralsei or Susie, or both. But one of these songs just so happens to be... And keep in mind, this is only one of 2 songs that can be played on this piano which are not a Deltarune or Undertale reference that get a response. The other one being Chopsticks, which is just a basic piano learning song. Now, not only is this a reference to Woody, but it's also a reference to the strange shitpost Toby made, which created this entire theory in the first place. Now, 3 strikes, and I feel like something's going on. Now, you may be wondering, what does any of this have to do with Friend? Well, to answer that, let's go look at that shitpost Toby Fox made all that time ago. Yeah, it's not much, but if we're expecting this Toby Fox shitpost to be relevant in any way, enough to inspire a whole secret boss, it's gotta have something to do with Friend. And when we consider that Friend seems to have its way around the secret bosses, yeah, that's probably the case. Now, I understand how 2 references to a cancelled cowboy show and the Toy Story song do not make a good theory, but there's more here, so let's keep digging. And go right back once again to the mic fight, because I'm not done with it just quite yet. Now, I've already established how our cat mic is fucking suspicious as hell, but we have another microphone to cover here, because our cowpoke microphone goon down here just so happens to be directly a reference to Woody Theory, which, unlike the cat, Toby actually had a viable amount of time to see the theory before he would put this into the game. Although, I do find it interesting that both of the main theories covered here, that being Friend is Cat Theory and Woody Theory, both stem from things directly released by Toby outside of the game of Deltarune itself, a Spamton Sweepstakes minigame and a suspiciously worded newsletter. Now, my big thing here is that if Toby is, in fact, using this fight as nothing but a lampoon on the theorist community, why would he choose these 3 Deltarune theories in specific? Now, I don't know about you, but these aren't exactly the theories that come to mind when I think of Mike speculation pre-Chapter 3. Mike being a microphone, which is the only theory I haven't mentioned thus far, despite being very obvious, there was very little speculation about Mike as a microphone. Like, surprisingly so. If you look at Deltarune Chapter 3 leaks, quote-unquote, most of the time you'll see Mike as a TV, like Tenna, which I understand why Toby couldn't do that because we already have Tenna, and they wanted to have the whole microphone gimmick in the first place. But still, it's weird. Also, if this was gonna lampoon theories, where is Rook? You know, chess theory was one of the biggest theories in the community that was, like, on top of the Deltarune world for, like, ever, and even when it was slowly deconfirmed through newsletters and trailers up to the release, some people still held on to it till their dying breath of the game releasing. Like, don't get me wrong, Woody Theory was big, but, like, never nearly as big as chess theory. So many people were predicting Mike Rook as the next chapter final boss. So it just feels weird to me to put in Friend Theory, which definitely has its merits, and Woody Theory as well instead of Rook Theory. Also, the interpretation we do get of the Woody Theory character here is so strange, because it's not at all what Woody Theory was predicting. He's really just a microphone with a cowboy hat at the end of the day who's just kind of acts like a goon. And like, if Toby Fox was going to lampoon Woody Theory in this boss fight, why not put in any of the key characteristics of Woody Theory into this? Hell, if he's gonna make an actual joke out of it, then why don't put Friend Inside of Me into the actual Mike boss fight track? You cannot tell me that's not something that both Toby and the fanbase would find fucking hilarious. If anything, personally to me, it feels like this fight is trying to get us to look into Woody Theory rather than look away from it. It feels like Toby's actually saving a lot of cowboyisms for something in the future, and that, alongside all of the other shit around Tenna's canceled cowboy show, finally got me to start looking into Asgore. We have to remember here that this supposed cowboy show was Asgore's favorite show. Now, I'm sure you've all heard where Chapter 5 is probably going to be. Everybody's decided that Chapter 5 is going to be Asgore's chapter. Everybody looking into the lines Gersten says about Chapter 5, luckily everybody ignoring the pink and gold for some reason, about gardens and an inferno of jealousy, and Sans just boned your mom, so Asgore's got a lot to be jealous of.
Doing your mom? That's just insulting!
But that's not what got me. You see, there's a prophecy about Asgore in Chapter 4. This prophecy is also hidden and sandwiched in between the prophecy about the angel and the prophecy about the Eggman, which is nonetheless interesting. I'll give it that.
The Flower Man trapped in asylum.
Now, this prophecy is called Boss 3, Boss 1 and 2 being Queen and Tenna, both final bosses of their respective chapters. Don't know why there's no King prophecy, but, you know, nobody really liked him anyway. I can understand why for the Titan, this is a bit special, but anyways, this seems to imply that Asgore will be the final boss of a chapter in Deltarune. All of that on top of all the garden shit really makes me lock in for Chapter 5 being Asgore's shop. And, you know, one of the first things I did for this theory, because this was, like, the first thing, the Woody theory, all the research for that, one of the first things I did was, find Asgore to be a little bit pink and gold. Granted, his yellow is a bit more orange, but it is gold, after all, so it doesn't have to be exactly yellow. You know, the more I've done research, the less this matters. Maybe Asgore has hope. We'll get to that later. But, you know, let's see what Asgore's been up to. He can't just be scrubbing toilets for his dying best friend's cold, unfeeling wife, and simping for his ex-wife. He's gotta be doing something else.
We're almost there, aren't we, old friend? This time for sure, Tori will finally see. see what really happened. That I just wanted to protect everyone. And this time, she'll have to believe me. They all will. Then we'll all be a happy family again, won't we? It sure is beautiful, isn't it? This black shard.
Okay, so you might be surprised by this, but I don't care about the black shard at all. That's not what I'm going to talk about here. If you want my take on it, I think he found it in Carol's house, but that's for a future video. What I want to talk about is what Asgore says first. Who's the old friend? Because Asgore's talking to somebody here, and it's an interesting name to call whoever this is by. And based on his usage of we when he talks about the family, whoever this is, Asgore at least considers them to be a part of the family. So who is it? Well, I'll go ahead and rip the band-aid off right away. I don't think it's a person. I think it's an object of great sentimental value. We see in Chapter 3 that objects like Tenna consider themselves a part of the Dreamer family, and debatably they are. And this cowboy show is apparently pretty old enough to be possibly black and white, perhaps maybe as old as Asgore. So I think this cowboy show was something that Asgore watched when he was growing up, something he wanted to show Chris and Asriel as a father, and I think what he's talking to is a cowboy puppet that he had from his childhood. One of the only things that he got to keep in the divorce. I think perhaps Asgore may have tried to give this puppet to either Asriel or Chris, but perhaps over time, or just at first, they rejected it and forgot about it entirely. Then perhaps Asgore found it mistreated, unused, unwanted, and seeing as how it was his childhood toy, he took it back, and he would take care of it. And after the divorce, it was one of the only things that he got to keep. Maybe it reminded him of a younger version of Chris or Asriel. Left on his lonesome, maybe this puppet was the only thing he could confide in. An old friend that everybody else forgot about. Now, if this is true, obviously this puppet would be the secret boss of an Asgore-themed Dark World. It always seemed weird to me that Asgore would be a boss in Deltarune, because why would he fight Chris and Susie and Rousey, but you know, they're not his child. The only way I could see this happening is if Asgore was either taken control of by something, or goaded on by something. And that something would obviously be this puppet right here. I think this puppet might even be jealous of Chris for actually receiving Asgore's love as his child, rather than just a puppet. Maybe it even wants vengeance for Chris rejecting it all those years ago. This boss could once again give our pink and gold motifs of hope and freedom. A hope for Asgore's love and approval, and perhaps it wants the freedom to be a Lightner. Maybe it sees Chris, an adopted child of the Dreamer family, and thinks that if it were a real boy, if it were a Lightner, maybe Asgore would adopt him too. Another pattern that our pink and gold bosses seem to be sharing is that they seem to be affiliated with a particular party member. In Spamton's case, that was Chris. In Gerson's case, that was Susie. So, since this is the final secret boss, it'd feel weird if we didn't get a Rousey-themed secret boss in some way. Rousey's whole thing is that he fuses friendship with Lightners in a rather nihilistic way, seeing himself as nothing but an object, a tool for their happiness. Maybe Rousey and the cowboy could bond over a mutual love of Lightners. However, where they'll differ is when the cowboy tries to be a real boy. He might even encourage Rousey to do something similar and stand up to the Lightners as well. And I think this is where they'll differ and the conflict will begin. Now here's the big idea for this boss. His madness has sprung from a little voice inside of him, telling him he could be a real boy. It's almost like he's got a friend inside of him. I think his story might end with him popping open as this little friend comes right on out. Okay, so that was just some wild and fun speculation. Do I actually think any of that's gonna happen? Maybe. Maybe something like that will happen. We'll see. But I do think Chapter 5 will be important to Friend. It is the fields of pink and gold, after all. Maybe Friend or Mike or whoever will be the one manipulating Asgore. But when you consider that Chapter 5 will give us the final Shadow Crystal, and how possibly Friend's goal aligns with making that pure crystal there, I just think that something majorly Friend-related will happen this chapter. I'm not sure what, we'll see, but I feel like something. But there's one more thing I gotta address about Friend.
It makes sense why Asgore took so long to hire a new royal scientist. After all, the old one, Dr. Gaster, wore that to follow. They say he created the core. However, his life was cut short. One day, he fell into his own creation. Doesn't look the same way. I understand why Asgore waited so long to hire a new royal scientist. The previous one, Dr. Gaster. His brilliance was irreplaceable. However, his life was cut short. His experiment went wrong, and, well, I'm making gossip. After all, it's rude to talk about someone who's listening.
This might work faster with the old rival scientist, Dr. W.D. Gaster. One day, he vanished without a trace. They say he shattered across time and space. How can I say so without fear? I'm holding a piece of him right here. It's about time we talked about him. You see, while I think Friend may be responsible for the shadow crystals, it's still pretty undeniable that all of the Gaster shit is tied into it. I mean, there's the fact that when Mike or Friend or whoever called Spampton, all anybody else could hear was garbage noise on the receiver, which is what the track Muse_Smile, a track heavily associated with Gaster, is called whenever Chris calls their phone in the Dark World, and that exact track plays. However, an actual point in Friend's favor is the fact that the track is called Muse_Smile, and I can't think of anybody else who represents smiling better than our good Friend here. But regardless, that track is still heavily associated with Gaster, and I think maybe it might just be Friend's theme, because Friend is heavily connected to Gaster. So on the topic of Muse_Smile, I did a bunch of shit with it here, because I looked back in, I did some research, and I remembered that if you speed up Muse_Smile, it just turns into a laugh. Muffet's laugh, to be specific. Now, Friend laughs a lot, and they also have a weird-ass laugh. I'm currently trying to see if I can find anything within the laugh. I think it sounds similar to the sped-up Muse_Smile laugh, but, unfortunately, everything else in this video also took a while to do. So maybe in the future, I'll do a live stream where we look into the Friend laugh and the Muse_Smile laugh, see if we can find anything, because there's definitely something hidden in Friend's laugh. I'm sorry, I'm just listening to it. There's gotta be something in there. Now, if Muse_Smile is in fact Friend's theme, that kind of ties up their relation to Spampton perfectly. With that, and the fact that Friend is possibly Mike, and the eye similarities, I just think there's no way that it wasn't Friend who led Spampton towards that shadow crystal. There's seemingly no evidence of who gave Gerson that shadow crystal because they just dipped. But I'm gonna go with Friend on that one, because of the whole pink and gold theming, and both of their guidance and hope and all that. That just leaves two, and here's the thing. I'm not so sure it was Friend who gave out these ones. Let's look at Jevil first. Talking to Sham after the fight, he was a funny little man. Once the court jester, I the court magician. A friend? Could I perhaps consider him a friend? Perhaps. Perhaps not. But he was the only one who matched me in the games we used to play. One day, he met a strange someone. And since then he began to change. He started saying bizarre things that didn't completely make sense, but they didn't completely not make sense either. Soon, he began to see the world as a game, and everyone its participants. As the court mage and his only companion, I was forced to lock him away. Or rather, lock us away in his words. Since that time, the strange words he said have stuck inside my cotton. And my view of this world has become darker and darker. Reflecting on these old memories, I think perhaps I miss playing games with him. I wonder if I hadn't been asked to lock him up, would I have found a little more purpose in my life? Sham says Jevil changed after he met a strange someone. And Sham seemingly knows the knight, referring to them as the strange knight in chapter 1, and knowing that we will fight them in chapter 3. So if this someone was the knight, I feel like Sham wouldn't refer to them as someone, rather the knight. Speaking of the knight, we still haven't found the origin of their shadow crystal. So let's look at that too. Let's look at the knight fight. And, well, there he is once again. He reemerges. So let's finally talk about him. The narrator is definitely Gaster. I don't need to explain why this is. You've all seen the Twitter takeover. This guy is Gaster, or at least whoever's writing in entry 17, which is almost definitely Gaster. Now I want to say something here. During the night fight, Gaster reappears. He doesn't want us to win this fight. I don't think that's what this is. I think Gaster just wants to see if it's possible. Gaster is a man of science. He's a researcher. The defining characteristic of Gaster is his curiosity. His catchphrase reminds us of this at every time.
Very interesting.
So believe it or not, this brings us back to Alice in Wonderland. A large point of Alice in Wonderland is how Alice's curiosity is what leads her down the rabbit hole into Wonderland. Wonderland is a creation of Alice's own mind. It's a dream at the end of the day. Similar to how Toby Fox dreamed up the ending of Undertale. Gaster fell into his own creation. Alice fell into her Wonderland. In Wonderland, the Cheshire Cat is Alice. The Queen is Alice, because in a dream, every character we come across, every person in our dream is us. It's our mind creating a person and playing out that role as an illusion, like a dark world. Gaster was fractured across time and space. Gaster is everywhere. Like God, Gaster is in everything. Just like Toby Fox, because as an artist, every picture you paint, every character you create is a reflection of you, a small piece of your soul. The narrator, or our idea of Gaster, is Alice, curious of this world that they have created. Friend is the Cheshire Cat, a large piece of Alice, or in this case Gaster, which is acclimated to this world and come accustomed to it. The narrator is above all. Once again, it is God. Everything beneath it is nothing but a numbers game, an experiment which curious outcomes can extend from. What would happen if it gave a fake jester a view of the real world? What would happen if it gave the lost girl an ability to create more dark worlds, more creations? What would happen if it were to end it all? While the friend sees the value in the numbers, it watches them far more closely. It even helps them, helping a failing salesman get the recognition that he always desired, helping a quiet kid remember something they had forgotten long ago, befriending some, and ultimately doing everything it can to ensure these characters get a happy ending. One is cynical, nihilistic, and cold. The other is absurdist, optimistic, but possibly delusional. Do these two remind you of anything? Because they should, because what I just described is the central conflict of Undertale. The choice between integrating yourself amongst this fictional world and connecting yourself to these illusions of characters created by the code, or coldly disassociating yourself from this world, viewing it as nothing more than a numbers game, out of a curiosity to see what would happen if you went the wrong way. Ladies and gentlemen, Toby Fox has done it once again. Many artists show interest in similar themes throughout all of their works, and I think Toby is one of them. However, this time around, Toby has put more thematic elements into this that require further analysis. To explain this, let's look at the Mettaton Neo suit. Didn't think I'd bring it up, did ya? Now let's look at these wings, because they kind of prove what I was saying about Jevil to be correct. One side, pink and gold, representing friend, hope, optimism, freedom. The other, purple and green, representing our narrator, a corrupted version of the hope, cynical, nihilistic, and realistic. Now consider the creator of this piece, Mettaton. The body is an escapist fantasy, perhaps a hope that one day Mettaton could resemble this in the real world. However, the corrupted purple and green are there as an emblem of our narrator to remind us of why this piece exists in the first place, because of reality, because the reality needed to be escaped from. Because in reality, in the light world, it's unlikely Mettaton could ever live like this, look like this. In reality, Mettaton's a shut-in, living a lonely existence day after day. Our choices don't matter. Well, in real life, they seldom do. While in video games and escapist media as such, our choices often do matter. In fact, our choices are the most important of anything in that world. However, we do not live in that world, unfortunately. One individual does not have the power to stop wars or cure famine. Sometimes we don't even have the ability to help somebody who might need it. We do not have the freedom nor control to choose who we are in this world. We can't be a monster that could be anything. All we can be is human. And sometimes it may be nice to forget that for a little while. But Deltarune will not let us forget that. In Deltarune, we do not get to choose who we are. We are not Chris, we are us. And we do not belong here. This is not our world. And the game is very eager to remind us of such. And no character is better at this immersion breaking, in my opinion, than our narrator. A character who, just like us, does not belong in this world. It exists in a tier above it. Every time it comes on screen, it breaks the immersion and reminds us that we are in fact playing a game. While on the other hand, the friend only draws us in deeper. It makes us chase after it for answers and questions about this world, drawing us in deeper. I mean, hell, I created a full hour-long video on this fucker, so it's clearly doing its job well. It's always intrigued me how Deltarune, by acknowledging our existence, my existence as a player, has felt more immersive than any other game I've ever played. Because I'm not playing some random unnamed protagonist who I can't truly relate to. I am playing myself, and this is not my world, but I have been invited into it. And I don't think I'd ever be as immersed and feel inside of this world as I do, as I would be if I were to imagine myself as a vessel inside of this world. And it doesn't end there with these two, because we've still yet to acknowledge the meta aspect of how these two represent the game designer. As an aspiring artist and game dev myself, I can fully relate to and understand how these two represent very important aspects and philosophies about creation in general. On one hand, we have friend, the true connection you feel to the characters you create, an attachment we feel to the characters we create, and allowing ourselves to feel for them truly allows us to escape to their world, as if we are one of them. However, we are not one of them, and we will never be. And once they banish that angel's heaven and the screen goes black, we will be forced to face that reality as we look around us and realize that we are in this real world, and that's all we'll ever be. And on the other hand, we have the narrator, who is a constant reminder of that. The cynical side of the game dev, who sees the characters for what they are, nothing more than mere plot devices. The fictional cogs in the machine that create the prophecy. Their purpose is nothing more than to fill us with comedy, action, drama, and tragedy. At the end of the day, they are merely there to serve a purpose much higher than themselves. And as the game dev, as their creator, it is your responsibility to make them face what the story demands. And it doesn't matter what you do to them, because they're not real. They don't really feel the pain that you will inflict upon them. But they are real. Somewhere inside of Chris, Spamton is real. Somewhere inside of Stuzy, Gerson still lives. They exist in the lessons that they taught to them, in the memories that they shared. Every piece of Wonderland exists inside of Alice's head, exists inside of Alice, just like how every piece of Deltarune is a piece of Gaster. And Gaster is real. inside of Toby Fox. And somewhere inside of Toby Fox is every single other Deltarune and Undertale character. And I know this because a fictional character taught me it.
Because I think they are real. It's all real. Think about it. Haven't Luke Skywalker and Santa Claus affected your lives more than most real people in this room? I mean, whether Jesus is real or not, he's had a bigger impact on the world than any of us have. And the same can be said for Bugs Bunny and Superman and Harry Potter. They've changed my life. Changed the way I act on the earth. Doesn't that make them kind of real? They might be imaginary, but they're more important than most of us here. And they're all gonna be around long after we're dead. So in a way, those things are more realer than any of us.
When the light is running low and the shadows start to grow and the places that you know seem like fantasy, there's a light inside your soul that's still shining in the cold with the truth, the promise in our hearts. Don't forget, I'm with you in the dark.
Also, Friend is a black cat, and Toby represents himself by a white dog. And you're telling me that isn't something? That's the biggest piece of evidence I got, baby. Good lord, it's been like a month of working on this. Yay! I've been real paranoid that somebody's gonna beat me to the Friend Susie Gerson Hope connection for like a while now. But like hopefully not. I haven't seen any Deltarune theories in like a while. I've been like scared of watching them because like I've been trying to get this out so fast. It took so long. The editing got really intensive, but I think it's totally worth it because I think I was totally onto something. There's honestly, this video might end up being a part 1 of 2 because there's still so much to go over. I didn't even fucking mention I mentioned Noelle. I mentioned the weird route a few times, but like I didn't even mention how Noelle is connected to Friend. Noelle didn't even have an image on the cork board. I ran out of pins on the cork board. That's a whole don't worry about it. Speaking of the cork board, that thing's a fucking I don't think I'm ever going to do that again. I have no idea why anybody would ever use a cork board. The thread exploded. I don't know if you noticed, but like when I tied it to Gerson, it just exploded. Like you can see it in the video, and it's always Gerson too. When I reset up Gerson for the next board, the Woody Theory board, Gerson exploded again, and it was only like three threads connecting Gerson. Motherfucking Gerson, I like the character, but I'll never forget about this. I'll never forget about this. Yeah, but Noelle. This video is an hour and like probably 30 minutes long. I didn't have time to connect Noelle. Honestly, Noelle just never really naturally came up. Like a lot of this was just like kind of natural conclusions that stemmed from one another. Like, okay, fucking the secret bosses seem to all be pink and gold, and Jevel's distorted pink and gold. Who else is pink and gold? Fucking Susie. Okay, is there any connection there? And then it's like, okay, the hope connection and freedom connection, that seems like a real thing if Friend's connected to the pink and gold motif, because it seems like that's the only thing we know about Friend so far. Friend is freedom, Friend is hope, and then then we go into looking into the narrative themes and all that and such, and then you get the final big theory, Gaster, Friend. I don't have a name for this theory. What should I call it? I want to call it Friend Theory, but that seems so fucking pretentious, because it's like, I am the only one who can make a theory about Friend. We'll call it the Wild Friend Theory. That's awful. I'm gonna have a better name. I'm gonna have a better name than that. Maybe in part 2. Now you have to subscribe. Hit that like button and subscribe for part 2. Now you have to because I need to come up with a fucking name for this theory. I do want to make one thing clear, that this is just a theory at the end of the day. I feel like a lot of people in the Deltarune community get so fucking pretentious over their theories. It's like, it has to be true, has to be true. Like, fucking, Chris cannot be the knight. That is not possible. And it's like, I definitely did jump to some conclusions here, and that's just what I felt was natural. There's a lot of evidence for this, and I'm freaking out over the just evidence that I keep finding. Like, fucking every time that the word friend is mentioned, it's some weird shit's going on. It's either mentioned by Susie, which connects to the whole thing. Like, I'm pretty sure it's Susie only. I could be totally wrong about this. I could be, like, fucking shot in the shit. Like, some fucking commenter could just totally fucking own me. I could be wrong, but I think, like, every time the words friend is mentioned by the Fun Gang, it's normally by Susie. Probably by Rouse at least a couple of times. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it's also mentioned by Onion San, and then they fucking disappear, and it's also mentioned by fucking Sham, Suspicious, and it's also mentioned by fucking... By the way, more evidence for Mike Friend theory, if you didn't already believe it, because there's so much fucking evidence for it. If you talk to Spamton about friends, that's how you get the Mike dialogue. It all connects. It really just all connects. And honestly, I don't know what to fucking do with Roots. Speaking of the soundtrack, Friends and Friendship both appear in the soundtrack. Those are two unique, different songs. The Roots motif, which is a real motif, people should be looking for that. I'm having dementia right now. I found the Roots motif in something else. Because I think the Eggman does have... There's a track to the Eggman's room, right? I fucking don't remember. But I think that just also has the Roots motif, which is always connected to the shadow crystals. And that's just a thing. A friend being the Eggman is such a fucking weird thing. Because it's like, I don't know if I want that to be true. But I just keep finding evidence for it. And I'm not sure about this. This might just be like dementia, like I hear Gaster's theme and everything, but I think I do hear the Roots motif in, I'm not sure about Friends, the Friends OST, not Friends track, but the Friendship track, which is like really, that thing needs to be analyzed for motifs. Future live stream idea. I might just, I want to just look into all of these fucking motifs, look into the laugh of Friend. There's something there. The roots need to be analyzed. I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, because I'm up with the community. I kind of started avoiding theories because I'm fucking terrified that somebody else is gonna be like, Friend is Hope, and I'm like, fuck, all this work was for nothing. No, they beat me to it. Fuck. But that's not gonna happen. Was I fucking I'm rambling like crazy. This is the whole point of this. Is the rambling outro. I don't want to be too pretentious about the theory. A lot of people are like, oh well, the theories have to be true, and then they like, it's like you build a whole tower of Lego bricks that don't exist. What's the metaphor? I don't fucking remember. But it's basically, you're building, you build your theory on top of another theory. You extrapolate the evidence for your theory, basing it on the evidence that is another theory. The evidence is a theory, and then eventually you're just building invisible Lego bricks. You're building an invisible tower till there's actually nothing beneath you. You're nowhere. You've got nowhere. And this theory is a little bit like that. Kind of. There's still, I think, a bit of evidence for everything down the road, except like towards the end, but that's kind of just speculation based on everything that I've gotten so far. And it is fun to do that, but I do feel like if I make a part 2, I might just be building a tower that's not real. And a lot of people in the theories community get so like pretentious and wrapped up in their own theories, go up their own ass, that they cannot accept that their theories are like not true, and they build off the theories being true. And I feel like that's a bit of a dangerous cycle, particularly Another thing that I'm gonna spin some hot takes here. I don't know. One thing I'm not happy about with the Deltarune theories is we need to stop. We need to focus on other things but the knight. I feel like so many people are focused on like the knight's identity, when in my opinion the knight's identity doesn't really matter. I feel like it's either one of two people. We've pretty much narrowed it down to that. If you think it's Rudy, you're being a contrarian. If you think it's Asriel, good on you for actually having an interesting opinion. If you think it's Noelle, you're not a real person. That's not a real argument that exists. I don't think that's a real person. I don't think you exist. And if it's Carol or if it's Des, basically all of us agree that they're working together to do the same thing. I think we need to put more focus on what the conspiracy is actually, because there's definitely something there. I think Rousey is probably in on it, but that's a whole thing. That's a whole thing. I'm rambling. So off the topic of fucking Deltarune shit, channel update. Want to update y'all about the fucking channel if you haven't tuned out of me rambling for the past fucking 8 minutes. God damn. I got a lot to talk about. Can't shut me up. But channel update, Teapot 19 reaction. So I'm probably going to do that again. I will be most likely out of the country, out of my home country. Staying with some relatives at that time, so that might be a bit of a messy situation to do a live stream. I will see if I can work that out. More Teapot analysis videos, we'll see. I've got big projects in the works. Big projects in the works that I want to get out soon. I got really big things planned that are not video essays, so look forward to that. Also, nobody. I didn't mention this last video. I do want to start doing devlogs, but like nobody mentioned it in the comment section, so now I'm a little scared of like nobody's gonna watch that. But I might do that. I've mentioned it. I do game dev a couple of times. I got a lot of things I'm doing, honestly. But, you know, game dev for them, it'd be interesting to see the reaction that everybody would have to some of my games that I do actually want to get published. And, you know, the best way to get them published is get eyes on them and shit like that. Other than that, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna be out of country for 2 weeks, so that's gonna delay some workflow. I've got a couple of big projects I'm working on. I do hope this Deltarune theory pops off. Not just for the views, but like I think I do want to hear some discussion. I want this to be like a big point of discussion because I think I'm genuinely onto something. I think this is a big theory, and I think there's more stuff to go over here. I think if I just look more, I'll find more evidence of some wacky weird shit, because I wasn't even looking and I just found all the roots connections to the Eggman. And maybe I'll do a live stream for fucking just looking through a bunch of Deltarune leitmotifs, because that'd be fun. Maybe also I'll do for a part 2. I've got a few ideas on Darker Than Dark and what Sans is, Deltarune Sans is, what the hell's going on there. I've got ideas. I could put them out there for a part 2. We'll see. We'll see. We will see. Give me some. I'd love some feedback. I'd love some you guys' own theories on what all this means, what all the connections mean, and then we can build off that. And we're not just building an invisible tower off of nothing. We're building each other's invisible tower off of nothing. But anyways, I've been rambling for fucking 11 minutes, so this is the point when the video is